while the regulation implementation at the Safe Drinking Water Act in the 70s was a great mark, really what we're trying to do is further the implementation of the basic tenets of drinking water supply: source water protection, filtration and disinfection.
I think there's a lot of concern about, what's not regulated and what's, I call it, the contaminant du jour. So EPA has now regulated 96 different contaminants. And if you compare that to other programs, for example, air pollution, they've got, I think it's either 6 or 8 priority pollutants. And so it just begins to show the diversity of what's been done in the regulatory program, which makes you think, well, then we need to be very thoughtful about how we move forward with regulating something new.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's, hearkening back to that there's some boogeyman of what's the really bad thing in the water that is really going to be detrimental. And even more recent examples, I mentioned hexavalent chromium being my research subject, PFAS being front of mind in a lot of cases right now. The reality is that actual exposure to those compounds in drinking water, even though they had not been previously regulated in drinking water, have declined in many ways across most water systems. So there's been good progress made even outside of that. But the simple reality is that the microbial risks that we face in drinking water, which we have largely overcome with source water protection, filtration, and disinfection achieved over the last 100+ years, are absolutely the first and foremost things to be prioritized.
I have exactly the same response as Chad with slightly different words on prioritizing risk, which is respect the fundamentals. There are many wells that have been drilled out there that are 40, 50 years old that have never had the well pump pull because it's a single source for a small system and there's no good alternative. And you can't run a well pump until failure if that's a single source supply or a small groundwater system. You wouldn't do that with your car. You wouldn't drive the car with no maintenance until it died. And so I think there are some resiliency fundamentals that need to be rethought or reconsidered as part of the prioritization process to ensure that you're still producing water at the same time you're preparing to meet your naming standards.
And that's a important reality where I think the Safe Drinking Water Act has been great to address quality and prioritize those things with quality. But the next 50 years really does need to address and achieve maintaining quality so we don't have any erosion of what it takes to supply those things.
I agree with Chad. I think there is a real need for leaders, and this is both leaders at the water system or local community and EPA, to think a little more about maintaining what we have. I think it's important for the water sector, including EPA leadership, to take advantage of the 50th anniversary of the Safe Drinking Water Act to think about sort of 2 buckets. What can be done under the existing act to, again, improve resiliency, maintain what we have, at the same time make progress on the 2 new regulations, lead and PFAS, that have come out.
It is a machine that drives to the need to identify things to regulate. And it doesn't account for the expectation to maintain what we've already achieved. And so I would advocate that EPA leadership, water utility leadership, all of those of us in the drinking water community, first and foremost on this occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Safe Drinking Water Act, celebrate what we've accomplished.
And then I think, how would you go beyond the primary focus of the act, which is on water quality, as it shifted from regulating at parts per million to parts per billion to parts per trillion?